On September 21st, 2012, on a beautiful Ithaca day, we headed out to the McDaniels Nut Grove for our weekly horticulture lab. We met the man in charge, Mr. Ken Mudge, at Dillman Hill Student Farm and walked to the back corner to the gate into another world. The McDaniels Nut Grove had been operating since 1923, a long time ago, and it has been a vital part of nut and agroforestry practice research for generations. Now, agroforestry is the practice of incorporating aspects of forests in agriculture and, in the ultimate sense, growing crops under an established forest canopy. Mr. Mudge pulled us off the trail to look at a specimen from the yesteryear of the nut grove. It was a tree that had been grafted by the great-great-grandpappy of the nut grove, Mr. McDaniel himself. It was a selected hickory cultivar grafted to a hickory rootstock by cutting off part of the existing tree, cutting a side in and peeling away the bark, cutting away a flat face on the grafting twig, and tacking and waxing it all up so that the vascular cambium touched and initiated new growth.
Many consider me an expert on natural foods like cattails. Yes, they're edible. I look for natural ingredients in my food. That's why grape nuts is part of my breakfast. This is a wholesome cereal made from wheat and barley. These natural ingredients are baked into crunchy nuggets and fortified with 8 essential vitamins. Its naturally sweet taste reminds me of wild hickory nuts.
We were then introduced to the major non-timber crop growing in the grove, the famous shiitake mushroom.
In fact, one of the more profitable ones. Shiitake mushroom is not native. You'll never find it in the woods. It's native to China and Japan, but it does really well under our conditions. And I'm really disappointed that we don't have any fresh shiitake here now. We have a shot.
The first step in production after cutting the logs is to drill a row of holes long ways down the log. Multiple rows, that is, and then the next step is the spawn is injected and the holes are waxed over. Now this spawn, to use some fancy horticultural jargon, is a vegetative mycelium, or the reproductive part of the mushroom fungus. Finally, the logs are stacked under the trees. Now these logs will stay out in the woods for about 8 to 10 months, or until a white pattern on the butt end of the log appears, which denotes substantial fungal growth. And while these logs are drying, they can be stacked in a crisscross method or even along the hillside called a rick stack, as this is common in Japan. When this white pattern can be seen at the butt end of the log, you know it is time to shock it. And to trigger this rapid and abundant growth of mushrooms, each log is shocked between 12 and 24 hours in full immersion, and cold water is best. It usually takes about a week after they're shocked for mushrooms to appear.
Mr. Mudge showed us another area where hostas were being grown in a pot-to-pot setup.
So if a forest owner can grow these things, particularly using the method that we're using, it's a nursery production method called pot in pot. And there's an empty pot right there. I just pulled this plant pot out of there, and so I can carry it off to the market without damaging the root system and the transplant shop. But once we put that pot on the soil, sun hits it in the summertime, black pot absorbs heat and will literally kill part of the root system. So you got it down there in the cool of that soil profile, and because it's cool, it uses a whole lot less water. With this summer we had...
In yet another part of the grove, we saw the ginseng bed.
But ginseng comes from China, Korea. It's not, it was originally utilized in China and Korea, and that's a species over there called Panax ginseng. There is a North American species called Panax quinquefolia. That's what we're dealing with here.
On a per-pound basis, the ginseng is the most valuable of the agroforestry crops at the McDaniels Nut Grove.
It's amazing what these kids will do for cash, Ken.
Look at them, wow.
And I thought they were just hungry. Or they, oh, by the way.
Well, I think we talked about it. It's aphrodisiac. Could be that too.
After all of this learning, we headed back to the Dillman Hill barn to inoculate our very own shiitake mushroom logs under the direction of Mr. Mudge and his assistant.
In the spring typically, and you do this in the spring. Nevertheless, we have done this as a class exercise in the fall year after year, and students keep coming back and throwing mushrooms at me, or eating them. So it'll work, it's just not the ideal time.